battles have been won against greater odds. I've fought beyond the wall against worse than Ramsay Bolton.
You don't know him.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Rantpocalypse Talks Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 9, Battle of the Bastards. The day has finally arrived. We finally got the most intense, epic battle that we've seen on Game of Thrones. Maybe? I don't know. I think I want to know your thoughts. So if you think this is the most badass and most intense battle we've ever seen on an episode of Game of Thrones, let me know in the comments down below. But we're going to get into it. I'm going to give you some of my first impressions on the episode. My name's Justin, by the way, and welcome to my channel that's on the YouTubes, that's on the internets. But I've got some notes here with me, so that way I can kind of collect some of my thoughts. This episode was directed by Michael Sapochnik, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, and this is the dude that did Hard Home last season, which was probably my favorite episode of Game of Thrones of all time. Like, it was just perfection. It had some of the most crazy, intense scenes. The action was phenomenal. So I was really happy to see him directing this episode. I knew we were in for a treat. We really only got two groups in this episode, which is weird because in the last 7 episodes, it's been like boom, 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 boom. We've been getting, a little bit of Cersei, then we flip over and we get a little bit of Jaime, then we flip over and then we get a little bit of Jon, then we flip over and we get a little bit of Tyrion and Varys, then we flip over and we get a little bit of Dany, and so on and so forth. But this episode, it really focused in on the two batshit bananas crazy things that were going on in Meereen, and then the stuff, of course, that happened with the Bastard Bowl. So I had sort of a top 3. I was gonna do a top 3, but then I'm like, how the hell do you do a top 3? There was just so many crazy things that happened this episode. So I will say that I'm cheating, and my 2 top things that happened in this episode was Dany taking back Meereen / defending Meereen, and then of course the Battle of the Bastards, the entire battle. But a few things that I really enjoyed: the convo that Dany had with the Masters. Oh my god, this was so good. That opening conversation, because at first I was really nervous. If you watched our thoughts on Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 7 that me and my mom did, you can go check it out in this description below, or you'll probably see some kind of card here pretty soon. I was really worried about Tyrion. I was afraid that Dany was going to be quite ticked off at him, and yes, she was, but she wasn't enough to where she was going to burn his ass with a dragon. So that was good. So he got to be a part of the conversation with the Masters because she's like, nah, fuck this. I'm going to burn this city to the ground. I think Tyrion kind of talked her down a little bit from burning the city to the ground. But anyways, the conversation that she had with the Masters, it was great. I love the fact that they were undermining her quite a bit in that conversation. They were talking down to her. They're like, we'll let you leave now with your tail tucked between your legs, but you'll get to live. And she's like, nah, I don't think so. I'm gonna kill every last one of you. And then she set Drogon loose, Drogon was fucking huge. He's grown to these enormous proportions, especially when you compare him to the 2 other dragons that I can never remember their names, but they're there and they're tiny. They look like little lizards compared to Drogon. So I really love that. I love the fact that, she set those dragons on those ships, burn that one ship. At first, it was, I think it's Dracarys or something like that. She's like, Dracarys, get him. Or Dacarys, I don't remember. Who can remember these dragon names all the time? Especially after you've had a few drinks celebrating this phenomenal episode of Game of Thrones. But I love whenever she, set them burning that ship, and then Drogon comes in, and it's just like, it was insane. I love the second conversation that they had with the Masters. It was great. Grey Worm's like, hey, soldier dudes, you can lay down your arms and you can go home and you can maybe sleep with your wives, you can go home to your kids, or you can die here today. And they promptly laid down their arms, which was phenomenal. And then whenever Grey Worm killed those 2 Masters, which I was so pumped, I was so glad that he killed that one asshole, because that dude is like that annoying asshole person that when anything happens, they're always quick to blame somebody else, as opposed to, owning up to their mistakes, because that dude definitely made a mistake whenever he crossed Dany, because Dany was not having any of it this episode. So I loved all that. And of course, I love Theon and Yara. I didn't expect them to get there that fast, but this season of Game of Thrones, I mean, they've been rapidly going through material, so it was cool to get to see it. I kind of wish they would have left that for maybe episode 10 to set up season 7 and the really short season 8. But I did like the conversations, especially Tyrion's back and forth with Theon, and Yara and Dany. They're gonna make a badass power couple. Like, Yara's like, hey, you wanna get together? I kind of felt like some vibes there, where Yara was trying to throw it down on Dany, which, I mean, hey, who can blame her? Dany's really hot. But I really like that back and forth, and it looks like they're gonna join forces. And that was all the Marine stuff. Really enjoyed it. I was happy to see the Marine stuff kind of come to an end. I'm ready to see Dany make her journey across the seas to Westeros and then take on the real battle, which I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I don't know if Dany is going to have to fight some of the Westeros houses, because I don't think that they're going to be quite too keen on just being like, hey, you can take over shit. I'm pretty sure everybody's a little bit more prideful than that. Maybe not quite as prideful as the Blackfish, but I don't think they're just going to be like, hey, take whatever you want. All good scenes in Marine. I really enjoyed Marine this week. Getting on to the Battle of the Bastards, I don't know what's not to like. It was anything and everything that we wanted prior to the episode as a Game of Thrones TV show fan. It was badass. I mean, we got every single thing. I mean, we got this epic medieval battle, which we have never seen on Game of Thrones. I mean, when you go back, the Battle of the Blackwater, that was on ships. We didn't see, like, two armies coming together and just battling it out like we saw in this episode. I mean, even whenever the wildlings were taking on Castle Black, that was just it was a small scale. Whenever Stannis took out the wildlings, that was just kind of like just destruction. Tormund even mentioned it in this episode, which was one of my other favorite things about this episode, is Tormund and Sir Davos' conversations. Like, when Tormund says the word cunt, it just makes me get all giddy inside. It's like, it's so funny just hearing Tormund say cunt. And I've been growing my beard out. I'm trying to get my Tormund look on. I don't know if it's working out too well. But I love Tormund. He's one of my all-time favorites. I thought he was going to die in this episode. I'm so glad that he didn't die. Again, like I said, as a fan, this is improbable. This never happens. I mean, Jon Snow, he was totally baited by Ramsay, and he did exactly what Ramsay wanted him to do, but yet it still worked out for Jon Snow. I mean, how many arrows were shot into that field? It was just a constant barrage of arrows, but Jon Snow seemingly somehow made it out alive. I think that, obviously I was happy about that, because that's my boy, that's my boo. I like him a lot. He is probably my favorite Game of Thrones character. He's such a badass. He reminds me so much of Ned, and even in his stubborn ways. I mean, Sansa tells him in this episode, like, you're falling into Ramsay's traps, and he did, and that's why they all should have died. Like, that should have happened. They should have lost. It should have been over with. But Sansa's letter to Littlefinger, which is what I'm guessing that was the real letter that was sent off. It wasn't the letter that we thought they got sent off. Maybe I missed it. I thought she was sending a letter off to the Blackfish, and maybe that was what happened in that episode. I know, like, some people, they came out and they showed that the actual letter and everything, and you could read it. I never read it. To me, it felt like it was to Littlefinger, because he came through, and it was amazing. I fucking loved it. It was so good to see Ramsay's face just. It was like, and then it went to, and it was great. I loved it so much. Tormund living, Jon's improbable escape. It was phenomenal. I was so nervous that Tormund was going to die, but whenever he turned the tide, he went all Rick Grimes on that dude and ripped his throat out. I'm pretty sure that was his throat. Whatever it was, it worked, and I loved it. 1-1. So sad. I loved 1-1. 1 was so cool. He was such a badass. that had to have been the most traumatic moment of the episode. I mean, I got a little teary-eyed. It was very sad, and I did not want 1-1 to die because he's been such an awesome character. Even though it's not like he really talks or anything, he just grunts, and that's, not a whole lot. I mean, I think he said Jon Snow one time, but I don't recall him saying a whole lot of other things. But I loved 1-1. I love the fact that he's the one that stormed Winterfell, broke down the doors, and I mean, it led to just a epic beatdown by Jon Snow, and it was great. I mean, Sansa got to feed Ramsay to the hounds. I don't know what else you could have asked for in this episode. The only thing that I will say is that it was all really, I guess, I can't think of a good word for it right now other than convenient. The stakes didn't feel as high sometimes as I wanted them to, and that's where I look back at an episode like Hard Home, subjectively here, and I say that, in Hard Home you felt this like just immense stress, like it just swallowed your body whole. I don't know any other way to describe it, but I was just on the edge of my seat the entire time. And in this episode, I didn't feel quite that way. I mean, I was, wanting to go buck wild, but I had the thing on my head, so I really couldn't, jump up and down like I normally would. But there was just something that there was something that wasn't quite there. I can't put a finger on what exactly it was, but I mean, the action was incredible. The scenes with Jon and Ramsay were phenomenal. I know most people will probably say that Rickon's death was more emotional for them, but for me, 1-1's death, I mean, that hit me right in the heart. And that was really sad. And then, I mean, I love the fact that Sansa, I mean, she stepped up in this episode. I mean, she's like, hey, I'm right there with you, Jon. I mean, we're right there. You should be consulting me on things, which was great to see. And I love the fact that she got the ultimate revenge on Ramsay Snow. You will never be a Bolton. You will always be a bastard. So we rated the episodes out of bacons, but I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5 bacons. It was a great episode. Hard Home to me was a 5 out of 5. Ultimate, the best ever episode, and the Battle of the Bastards, it was right there with it, but just not quite as high. I'm actually kind of sad that Ramsay's gone. I don't know why I should be saying that, but I'm actually kind of sad that he's gone. Hopefully, Euron Greyjoy, maybe he can be the ultimate villain in season 7. We of course have the Night King and the White Walkers as well. But that's all I've got to say about the episode. I think I said a lot. Probably said more than I should have because I've been rambling on here for quite some time. But I really enjoyed the episode. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to check out our full discussion on Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 9, that will be coming later in the week in the form of our Rant of Thrones podcast, which is our Game of Thrones after show, the poor man's Game of Thrones after show that I do with my mom. So I'd love for you to check that out. So hit that subscribe button down below for more content. Thanks so much for checking out my video, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.